We are wired to want to fit in socially, meaning not going against the flow. But courage is a skill that can be practiced by doing little bitty things that cause you to feel uncomfortable and socially awkward, but with zero real negative impact. And I welcome you in to Free to Just Be, the podcast where I have been sharing my dance of transformation for several years now, as I have stepped away from programs and systems and observed myself and discovered the many ways that I was in that herd mentality. And it's hard to stand up against the herd. And it's been 4 days since I've been on the podcast, and I'm going to explain to you why. But right now, if I'm beginning to resonate with you, please smash that like button, because those little likes, it's crazy the world we live in. The way that we get seen is by people liking us. Man, what herd mentality is that, right? Algorithms, and it's just so unnatural, so inorganic. And yet here we are. So, and that's part of the reason I haven't been on behind the mic. But, we're in the world, and to a certain extent, we have to play the game. So I'm asking you to help the people that are trying to bring in authenticity and simplicity and things that are natural and organic. You got to hit the like button so that it rises up and people can see more of it, right? But anyway, it's exhausting. It's exhausting to go against the herd. And some of us have been doing that our whole life. And some of us feel like, man, I can't do another round. What do I mean? Well, let me back up first and say good morning, or grand rising. Why would people say grand rising over good morning? Well, words. Think about it. Think about the herd mentality and think about the phrase good morning. Morning also sounds like mourning, mourning. And that is how they would prefer for us to think, that it's so good to be in that horrible morning state, right? Instead, we want to think about how the sun is rising and how grand it is and how wonderful the day is going to be. And we don't realize and recognize that words are very powerful containers of energy. And when you stop and think about that, and people say, it's just words. Nah. Do you really want to align yourself with morning today? So, let's start again. Grand rising, Humanityville, on this tremendous, thought-provoking Thursday, the very last day of April. Can you believe it? That we are into the second quarter of the year already. We're already 30 days into the second quarter. It's just, this fire horse energy has just galloped us through the first 4 months of the year, hasn't it? And that in itself can be exhausting. But I have been one of those standing up against the herd my whole life. I always had a problem with authority. I always dressed different than anybody else. And the first part of my life, I thought I was the one weird, because I didn't want to be like everybody else. And then you stop and think about it. We spend our whole life trying to get back to who we are. And then you fast forward to stepping into the homeschool arena back in the 80s when it was not very popular. See, I've spent most of my life doing the unpopular, uncomfortable things before they were popular. Music, for example, I can remember Genesis, before Genesis was, before Phil Collins busted out. I can remember my brother John introducing me to Mott the Hoople, and I bet most people don't even know who Mott the Hoople is, And so that's how I've always spent my life. And, this morning is really no different. Who, by intention, sets their alarm for 3:30? It's very unheard of practice, and yet I can't start my day without God. I have to have that block of time with Him before I start my day, and that generally means, I have to get up an hour, sometimes 2 hours earlier than my husband. And it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to always be the one that you feel like you're running away from the herd. And everybody's saying, "What is wrong with you?" And now I know I'm not alone. I've never been alone. First off, He never leaves me. God never leaves or forsakes us. That's my number one. But number two, there are thousands, maybe even millions now around the world that do similar weird things. Come before a microphone at 4:30 in the morning to talk to humanity, when actually I'm just looking at this little bitty screen and hoping to shout that there are people out there that hear my words and resonate with them and feel the same way, that they are outside of that herd, and it's exhausting. And there are some days where you just say, I just can't do this anymore. And then you do the one step back and the 2 steps forward and the 2 steps back. And so the last couple, 3 or 4 days, the way I cope with feeling exhaustion, feeling like what I know I'm called to do, reaching out to humanity, strengthening women, helping to build a connection back to our spark of God. These are all very weird right now, currently. And those of us that are doing similar are the minority right now. And then there'll be a shift, and I'll probably be out in front of the herd doing something else weird that people think, what is wrong with her? And there's nothing. It's this pioneer spirit. It's following the Spirit of God. And I keep going back to those verses that talk about being in the world, but not of it. Or the quote by Las Tu that I refer to so often because it's so much in the forefront of my mind. It's my whole life I've spent observing what the world does and doing the opposite. Now, of course, when I was younger, that wasn't the case. I wanted to do the opposite, but I was too uncomfortable with being socially awkward. And then very quickly I entered that socially awkward, and I'm not talking like the wallflower, I'm just talking the weird one out. you know, the girl who wore braids and was called Pocahontas in high school. um, just, I've never really felt comfortable fitting in. And I never realized for most of my life, 50 plus years, that is leadership quality. That is the pioneer spirit. That is the audacious courage of somebody that says, no, I'm not going to take it anymore. I'm going to be who I want to be. I don't have to look like you. I don't have to act like you. I don't have to follow your proverbial rules because everybody else is doing it. So that's where I've been the last 4 days. It's hard to break into the world of women in my area who are under their own different programs. There's very large religious programming in Middle Tennessee. I'm in the middle of the Bible Belt, and I am so weird because I love God so much, and He's my everything. And there are people in the religious world that consider me fallen or heathen because I don't do things the way they do things. They don't understand why I'm not sitting in a pew 3 days a week. They don't understand why I talk about weird things like energy or even going against the herd. It doesn't compute with a lot of Christians in my area. Why do you want to meditate or move energy? And that doesn't make sense. And what the world does with things that don't make sense to them is they condemn it. I'll give you a very controversial example, and I'm not giving my opinion or taking a side. I'm just using this as a physical example in the world today, and it's a super controversial one, so prepare. Get your trigger button in your hand because it's going to go off. And that in itself should explain how much of a herd mentality we have. Because I'm going to make some comments about Trump, our president. That in itself, the media has so skewed things that we Americans no longer even have the respect, no matter what we feel or how we view our president. We no longer even say President Donald J. Trump, President Trump. No, the Trump. We call literally in public arenas the president of our country names, and it's really a very embarrassing way to be, to have no basic respect for human beings and for somebody that is in authority that, by the way, we elected. But anyway, the reason I'm bringing it up is because of this herd mentality and how we hate those that we don't understand, or those that we envy or are jealous of or don't agree with. And President Donald Trump is one of those. Because if you've ever, and most people that disagree would never even do this, but if you've ever watched, there is a video that was out several years ago. It was resurrected about a year ago, and somebody made a compilation of all of his allocates from the time he was a young man all the way up to the current times. And yes, while he was born into a certain amount of money and he was helped by his dad, the true facts are not there that the public gets to see. And this video compilation shows all of the things he pursued and the ways that he, here's the key, wanted to change society and America in general for the better. Innovations, having the best. He always saw our country as the land of opportunity, and he seized every one of his opportunities. And what we do as the herd is we want to look at that and say, oh, he was born with a silver spoon, or he was this way or that way. And the truth is, he worked his butt off and loved our country and loved God and loved his family and was a very humble man for a lot of years. Now, there's a huge ego. Yes, this is true. But we cannot negate the intelligence, the courage of this man. You look at this man and speak about herd mentality and our president. He definitely does not go with the herd. No matter how vicious, how much they trod upon him, he has continued to stand in courage and go against everything that everybody throws at him. So imagine how exhausting that must be when you have the entire world, supposedly, and that is a big word because everything is not the way it always seems. Just like myself. Do I want to align myself with him? Well, in the courage realm, yes. And knowing how it feels when everybody thinks you're weird or doesn't understand you, yes, absolutely. And Humanityville, are you aware that most innovations came from people like that? People who dared to be different, people who dared to have the courage to say, I don't want to do what everybody else is doing. How about we try this and see if it effectually makes a positive change in the world? So, for the last 4 days, I've kind of pulled in because I was feeling that exhaustion of continually standing. But here I am at 4:30 with my first cup of Java, my son just pulling up to enjoy a cup of coffee with my husband and I before he heads to work, just to share some of my weird ideas with Humanityville in the hope that they too will decide they don't want to be like everybody else. So as usual, Humanityville, I pray right now for your greatest health, your most vibrant energy, and of course, the peace that passes understanding, which comes only through God. Have a terrific Thursday. Peace. Good morning. I'll be out in a minute. I just got to get this uploading. There's coffee in the pot. There's coffee in the pot. Good morning. I'll be out in a minute. I just got to get... Have a terrific Thursday. Peace. We are wired. Okay.